Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. So today I'm going to teach you how to shorten the sleeves of a button-up shirt. So it's a shirt that has a cuff with, what is this called? This is called, I can't think of it at the moment. The binding part that helps the raw fabric. It finishes the raw fabric, but it makes it so you can roll up your sleeves on a men's. This works on a women's shirt also, men or women's button-up shirt that has a cuff. So I learned this at, I used to work at a tailor shop, and I have a lot of random knowledge for that, and I'm slowly trying to share it with you. So the important thing is you put the shirt on the person who's going to wear it, and then you kind of need to measure how much shorter it needs to be, because you can go up a full inch from here, a full inch this way. If you go any farther than that, then you will make it so that this part that opens up, it won't open enough for the person to roll up their sleeves, and that's the reason why you have it, is to roll up the sleeves. So you kind of have to measure to make sure, but if it's within an inch, then you can shorten it, and it's no big deal. So the first thing you do is you take a seam ripper, and you're going to take the cuff all the way off. So I'm going to seam rip that, and sometimes, can you see, sometimes there is 2 layers of stitching. Can you see that? 2 layers of top stitching, and sometimes there's just 1. I think often actually there's 2. So sometimes you need to unpick both, and sometimes you need to just unpick 1. So while I'm seam ripping this, I'll go as fast as I can. I'll do the fast seam ripper trick. But I want to know, do you have problems with being sleeves too short or sleeves too long? Because I often have the problem of sleeves are always too short. My husband is actually a really good average, and he doesn't need to get his sleeves shortened, but every once in a while it's cheaper to get, the sleeves that are longer. And so I have done this for my husband every once in a while, where I just shorten the sleeve a little bit. So as I'm unpicking right here, if you can see, so this, hold on, let me get it. So this stitching is what I'm unpicking, and this stitching is going up in here. So I'm going to have to unpick a little bit of this to get this, because you want the cuff to be completely removed. And it actually, you can even see where the button is sewn in, and I'm not going to take the button off because I don't want to sew that back on. But I want to be able to take it all the way off. So I have one side done, and I'm going to the other side. If the seam allowance of the sleeve goes into the, where the button is sewn on, then I would just trim it right next to the thread, so that you don't have to take the button off and re-sew it. I would just trim it, because you don't need that much seam allowance inside. You just need enough for the cuff to have something to hold on to. And even if the seam allowance goes into the buttonhole stitching, just trim it carefully so that so you don't have to redo the buttonhole stitching. And I'm almost done getting this off. It's just hard in the corner where you can't use the fast seam ripping, when you have to be careful with the fabric. Okay, there we go. So I have the whole, this is the sleeve part. If you can see, this is the pleat. Almost always there's a pleat, and it is still basted, which is fantastic, so that I don't have to figure that out. But you want to just make sure that's still there. and then here is the cuff. So you want to try to remove some of the stitching so you don't sew on top of it, because it kind of gets in the way. And then one important thing when you're doing this is you really need to match the thread as well as you can. Like go to take the shirt to the store and match the stitching, because you don't want it to look like that you shorten the sleeve. And the only way to make it blend is to have the exact same color of thread. So my thread is a slightly different color, but it's really close. I think it will work just fine. And one thing I've learned when matching thread, almost always the thread needs to be like a dusty color, especially when it comes to menswear. It's always like a muted tone. So don't go for like a really bright blue. This is like almost more of a gray, which it's not showing up very well in the video. It looks very blue in the video, but it is more gray in real life. Hi Delinda, I'm glad that you're here and that you let me know you're here. So I need to grab my pins and a marking tool. Here's my pins, and I forgot to grab my chalk. Okay, I like to use this waxy chalk. Just a personal preference. Everyone has what they like to use. It doesn't really matter what you do. So the first thing you need to do, I'm going to shorten this 1 inch because I want to show you that's how high you can go, but you will have your own measurement when you're doing it. So let me slide this down so you can see that I'm marking. Hold on. Okay. Hi, Marzia. I'm not even sure if I said your name right. And hi, Lisa. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, anyone. So take here. This is my sleeve, and this is my ruler. And I'm going to mark 1 inch from this edge. And that means I'm going to cut 1 inch off, but that means I still have this seam allowance here when when I go to put it back on. I'm actually gonna, so I'm just gonna go across like this and mark my line all the way around. So I will say, if you need to shorten your shirt more than the 1 inch, it is possible. I have done it before, but I had to redo the whole placket, the whole like the binding area. I had to redo that whole part to be able to make it work. So it is possible, but it's a lot of work. It's not worth it unless it's like a sentimental shirt or something like that, you know. Hi, Raynon. Nice for you to visit. Okay, so I have this marked. Do you see that marked line up there? And then I'm going to cut it off, but I'm going to bring this back up. Oh, except that lamp is right over my head. Oh, that's even worse. Let me grab scissors that I forgot to grab beforehand. So I'm going to just cut right through the right under that, right by that line I drew. And this is cutting off that 1 inch. So then you can raise the cuff, but I still have the seam allowance left on. So if this is something that like your son or yourself, someone you know needs, it's such a handy alteration because it's really actually not that hard. And as I'm cutting, I'm cutting off that nice basting that was there previously. And most likely I will have to deepen the pleat a little bit because that's just how it works. Yeah. Okay, so see how I cut that off? Nice straight new line. These are you can see the folds where these were the previous pleats. And now what you do is you're going to pin the cuff back on. Make sure that you're pinning it with the right side out so that your buttonholes and buttons match up. I'll show you. So, you know, this side of the placket has a button, this side of the placket has a buttonhole. You want to make sure that you get the buttonhole on the buttonhole side and the buttons on the button side. Especially if you're doing 2 cuffs at once, what I usually do is I take off both cuffs at the same time, and then I put them back on at the same time, and I have gotten them confused before where I accidentally switch them. So make sure that you're getting the buttonholes on the same side and the buttons on the same side. So I'm going to carefully pin this on, and then we'll sew it. I like to pin each side first because then you pin towards the middle, so then you can see how big the pleats need to be because the pleats might change, like they might change size slightly, like deepen, or because you moved it up higher, the pleats will need to be deeper to get that extra fabric. So I'm just pinning, and I'll show you that in a second. You can keep saying hi if you're just jumping on, and let me know if the sleeves are too short for you or if sleeves are too long for you. And now it's time I've smoothed this all the way over. This fits really nicely, and then I've pinned this side. And so this is all the extra fabric. This is where I have to put the pleats in. So I see where the pleats were before, and I see that that's not enough. And so I have to deepen each pleat a little bit. So you'll have to re-iron. You have to repress those pleats to make them look nice. What I prefer to do, you don't have to do it this way, is that I like to pin my pleat first, like this, and I'll pin my other one so that I can see that it's the right length before I pin it into the cuff, instead of putting it in and then doing the pleat, because you want to make sure that it's the perfect length before you put it in. So I pinned these new pleats. I'm going to have to press them later, but see how that's the right, it's the same measurement on the sleeve and on the cuff. So then I can slide this right in, this pleated part that I pinned. You can baste it if you want. Some people like to baste it first. I find I'm faster if I just pin it and then slide it in. Lisa, your sleeves are always too long. So this is a great trick. If you have a button-up shirt, then you can use this to shorten your sleeve. And Laura, your sleeves and hems are too long. I have a tutorial coming out tomorrow about hemming pants, jeans. So you should come back tomorrow. It's not a live, it's just a video, but I'll come back tomorrow and show you a really cool trick. So I have this all pinned on. This is pleats are in the right place. Everything's right, and now we're gonna go over to the sewing machine and sew it on. Usually when you sew a cuff on, you sew one thing and then flip it over and sew the other side. Since everything is in place, this fold, and this fold, it's already pressed nicely and it's the right place. I'm just going to sew right on top of it, and it will catch everything because it's already been pressed in place. And I back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And then, so I haven't trimmed the thread tails yet, but, oh, and there's still a pin. So here's that new line. So see how my thread doesn't match perfectly, but it was close enough. It's close enough for what I was doing. And on the inside, I caught everything because it was already pressed in place, and I had pinned it to make sure I caught both sides. So that's how you shorten the sleeves. You just move the cuff up, but this only works if you need it to be shortened 1 inch. If you need more than 1 inch, you have to redo the whole thing. If it's 1 inch or less, you can do this with 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch. And just remember, it's important to match your thread so that it looks like you didn't alter it. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll answer them down in the comments below. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Bye.